I'll always remember that sweltering, sunny July afternoon. My mom took me to see my first ever movie at the theater, Cars 2. She bought me a popcorn and drink combo. The best part? The straw. It had a plastic picture of Mater on it, who is my favorite character from the first Cars movie. I had to carry the drink and straw with both hands because they were so small. My experience is not unique. I'm sure that we all have a treasured childhood memory involving Disney. From Cars to Captain America, from Snow White to Star Wars, Disney has shaped childhoods for 100 years. Actor Neil Patrick Harris once remembered, "I think it's unbelievable how Walt Disney committed his life to the complete amusement and enjoyment of others." He's right. Today, Disney is easily the biggest and most influential company in the entertainment industry. Today, let's get in the car and take a drive through history to explore Disney's influence. Our first stop, the 1940s, where we'll explore Disney's damaging Japanese caricatures. Then, we'll cruise ahead to the 50s and 60s, where we'll see Disney's impact on the counterculture movement. Finally, we'll speed forward to the present day, where Disney uses its influence to promote cultural tolerance. Unfortunately, Disney's influence hasn't always been positive. In fact, their World War II propaganda reinforced stereotypical caricatures of the Japanese. Der Fuhrer's Face is a 1943 animated short film that helped to normalize these caricatures, most specifically through the film's depiction of Emperor Hirohito. He's portrayed with buck teeth, slanted eyes, and yellow skin. Brian Mia, an expert on Japanese American experiences during World War II, claims, "You see this in much of the Japanese imagery in this time period. They are sometimes even explicitly made into animals. By destroying any thought that the Japanese were human, it was easier for Americans to overlook the mistreatment of anyone who looked like them. Whether it be forcing fellow Americans from their homes or leveling entire Japanese cities." Commando Duck is another animated short film that normalized these stereotypes. When hidden Japanese soldiers spot Donald Duck floating up a river, one of the Japanese soldiers wants to shoot him. However, another reminds him that it is Japanese custom to always shoot people in the back. Bethany Bemis, a scholar at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, states, "It's the quickest way to play to people's base emotions, the us versus them mentality. It's an instinct that if you're going to fight someone, you have to dehumanize them, because otherwise, how could you stand what you have to do?" Unfortunately, the popular opinion that the Japanese were less than human contributed to the imprisonment of 120,000 Japanese Americans into internment camps. Fortunately, Disney's production and propaganda ended with the conclusion of World War II, but as we cruise ahead, we'll see that its influence would continue to be powerful. Disney had a profound impact on the baby boomer generation of the 50s and 60s. During the 50s, rock and roll was largely viewed as the music of juvenile delinquents. But Disney sought to change this perception with actress Hayley Mills's portrayal of clean-cut twins Sharon and Susan in The Parent Trap. The influential twins instead embraced the rock and roll sound. Gilbert Seldes, a former editor for the seminal Modernist magazine, states that Disney restored us to our natural impulse to dance. Along with figures of the time like Elvis Presley, Disney used its influence to normalize rock and roll and dancing, even when the older generation complained that it was too suggestive. Moving ahead to the 60s, Disney's influence is apparent in the film Mary Poppins. In his book, From Walt to Woodstock, film historian Douglas Brode asserts that Disney uses influence, or that Mary Poppins influenced young and old audiences alike with its representation of the 60s rebel movement. The appropriately named Mr. Banks represents the older generation. He's stuck in his ways of social conformity, which he tries to force on Jane and Michael. Enter Mary Poppins, the kid's savior, who demonstrates a more colorful and exciting world, quite literally in the case of the infamous chalk drawing scene. The drug culture of the 60s is also explored in the scene where Mary Poppins, Jane, Michael, and Bert visit Uncle Albert. The kids are literally high as kites as they float around the ceiling, laughing and having a wonderful time during a tea party. In fact, Broad points out that tea party became a slang term for a social gathering where people smoked marijuana. Mary Poppins affected young and older viewers alike and influenced younger members to join the 60s rebel movement. As we conclude our trip in the present day, we'll notice a profound shift in Disney's influence. Today, Disney uses their influence to promote cultural tolerance. Take the 2017 hit movie Coco, which exposes American audiences to the richness of Mexican culture. In his paper on the discourse of the illegal immigration debate, sociologist Hugh Mahan points out that the media largely shapes American opinions towards Mexicans. Just 2 years before Coco's release, then candidate Donald Trump was quoted calling Mexicans criminals and rapists. At a time when Trump's characterization normalized negative stereotypes, Coco showed American audiences a vastly different depiction. Instead, the movie's focus on the Day of the Dead celebration highlighted a rich culture. In fact, the New York Times called Coco the most sophisticated representation of Mexican popular culture ever produced for the big screen. Today, Coco stands as a significant contribution to ensure a more accurate, thoughtful depiction of Mexican culture. Disney's modern-day influence doesn't end with culture, though. It also addresses gender. In her essay, Animating Gender Roles, How Disney is Redefining the Modern Princess, Professor Juliana Garabedian claims that Disney is redefining gender roles with its uses of strong female leads. Consider Brave, one of the first Disney movies to depict an independent female main lead. Merida takes it upon herself to solve her problems and save her mother. There also aren't any male main characters outside of Lord Ferguson and Merida's triplet brothers, but even they are just reduced to comic relief, while the plot centers around the conflict between two strong female leads, Merida and her mother. While yes, Disney's history of dependent princesses is less than stellar, movies like Brave have smashed the stereotype and set the stage for more accurate portrayals of resilient, strong female heroes. Now that we've completed our drive through history to explore Disney's influence, let's pull our car into the garage. As we reflect on our trip, we see Disney's impact on the war effort with stereotypical caricatures of the Japanese. We see Mary Poppins, not only as a childhood classic, but also as a rallying point for the 60s rebel movement. Finally, we see Disney, using its influence to normalize differences in culture and gender. As for my Mater straw, it came home with me after the movie. I drank everything out of it for months until it inevitably broke. The plastic picture of Mater fell off, and I cried, forced to drink normally once again. Yes, material objects come and go, but Disney's impact is forever.